They excluded my son from the trip. Little did they know, I would unleash a heart-rending revenge. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air felt thick with betrayal. I stood outside the school, watching through the large glass windows as laughter erupted inside. Kids were grabbing their backpacks, buzzing with excitement. But not my son. He stood alone, his small hands clutching the strap of his bag, his eyes darting between his so-called friends. He was the only one left behind. The chill of early spring wrapped around me, but it had nothing on the cold clutching my heart. My chest tightened as I saw a group of kids moving away, the leader Tyler, with his smug grin waving goodbye to the others. My son's face fell, and in that moment, I felt an aching silence wrap around us as tightly as a noose. Inside, I could hear the clatter of metal lunchboxes and the excited chatter of kids ready for adventure. The school had planned a coveted escape to the amusement park. Everyone was going. Everyone but my son. "Mom, why didn't they want me?" he murmured, his voice barely more than a whisper. It broke me. I struggled to find words, but I couldn't mask the pain in my own heart. I knelt down, eyes level with his, trying to wipe the tears from his cheeks with trembling fingers. The way his lip quivered shattered something deep inside me. How could they do this? My sweet, kind-hearted boy, excluded for reasons I couldn't comprehend. The other parents didn't know. They didn't see the relentless kindness he showed. To them, he was just different. I had known there was tension, whispers slithering through the air like snakes, but this cruel act ripped through me as if I were the one being rejected. In that moment, darkness wrapped itself around my thoughts. I felt a raging tempest swirling inside, demanding justice. This wasn't just about the trip, it was about my son and the unseen battles he faced. Nothing would stay the same. I could already feel the whispers growing louder, the judging eyes of other parents sharpening like knives. What could they possibly know about the love I felt for my boy? This betrayal sparked something fierce in me. This wasn't over. I could dig into their secrets, unearth their hidden faults. The thought sent shivers of excitement down my spine. So here I stood, plotting my heart-rending revenge, a storm of determination brewing. I had no idea just how much I was willing to sacrifice for my son's dignity. Would they regret their decision? Would the weight of their choice crush them like the harshest winter snow? Oh, they would learn. Just wait. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The following days blurred into each other, a haze of anger and sorrow. I could hardly concentrate on my work, my mind wading through thoughts of betrayal that poisoned every intention. Each morning, I walked my son to school, trying to piece together the fragments of his spirit that had begun to dull. Conversations with parents transformed into battlegrounds of judgment. I could feel their eyes on me, disapproving, questioning. I wanted to scream at them for their ignorance, for their inability to see the light in my boy. "I'm okay," he said one afternoon, his voice steady but lacking its usual luster. He was trying to reassure me, as he always did, but his smile held the weight of an unseen wound. I ruffled his hair, but the gesture felt hollow. I wanted to keep my promise to him to never let anyone hurt him again. Yet, every attempt was swallowed by frustration. What could I do about the cruelty of children and the indifference of their parents? I found myself plotting more fervently, weaving revenge into something tangible, something I could wield against the world that dared to turn its back on my son. Then came the chance encounter that shook my resolve. I was at the local grocery store, lost in thoughts of retribution, when I spotted Mrs. Thompson, the mother of one of my son's classmates. She stood in the frozen aisle, her cart filled with colorful boxes of ice cream. With a surprising smile, she approached me. "Hey, I've been meaning to tell you how brave your son is," she began, genuine warmth spilling from her words. I blinked, unprepared, as she continued. "He played with my daughter when the others were too rough. She had so much fun with him. He really is something special, you know." My heart shifted, and for a moment, I was wrapped in a comforting embrace of hope. Mrs. Thompson didn't know about the trip, she didn't know my son was excluded. Yet, her kindness glimmered like a beacon, illuminating the shadows of my anger. We chatted briefly, and she left me with a few heartfelt words. "He has a good heart. Don't let those kids change that." A flicker in my mind found a way to reconfigure my vengeful designs. Perhaps revenge didn't have to mean causing pain. Gradually, thought by thought, I began to imagine ways to elevate my son instead. If I could cultivate support, grow a community of invincible allies around him, it might change everything. But just as this new tide of resolve began to wash over me, I received a text that sent my heart racing. It was from an unfamiliar number. "I know what they did to your son. Meet me at the park tomorrow at 5 p.m. There's something you need to know." The message left me breathless, an unsettling combination of fear and urgency twisting in my core. What did this person know? Were they connected to the children who had hurt my son? A sense of foreboding whispered through my mind, the deep-rooted impulse for revenge resurfacing, now mixed with a bitter apprehension. My mind raced, tangled with possibilities. Maybe it was a chance to gather secrets that would topple the walls surrounding these kids, or to gather evidence that would finally speak for my son. Or it could lead me into a trap. That evening, after I tucked my son into bed, I stood in the darkness of my kitchen, staring out at the shadows gathering outside. A war was brewing one I'd never intended to fight, yet here I was, poised on the precipice of a choice. Would I confront this new challenge with open arms, or would I plunge deeper into the dark motivations taking root within me? The whirlpool of uncertainty threatened to pull me under, and the weight of the decision lingered in the air like smoke, choking the light in my heart. As I prepared to meet the mystery person, a single thought screamed insistently in my mind: this had to shift. I had to ensure my son would never feel the burden of exclusion again. And yet, I needed to remain cautious, for shadows could conceal both friends and foes. With a resolute breath, I opened the door, stepping into the cool night air. A flicker of determination ignited within me, but the undertow of apprehension was stronger than ever. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever awaited me in that park would change everything. And just like that, as I walked away from the light of my home, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, teetering precariously on the edge of destiny. The sun dipped low as I approached the park, the sky painted in hues of burnt orange and deepening purple. Each step felt heavier, an anchor weighing me down with uncertainty. The trees swayed gently, their leaves whispering secrets I could not decipher, mirroring the turmoil gnawing at my insides. As I reached the park entrance, the shadows deepened, casting long, ominous outlines on the path ahead. I scanned the benches, the playground, but the figure I was supposed to meet remained elusive. Adrenaline coursed through me, mingled with the remnants of hope that Mrs. Thompson had ignited. I desperately searched for any familiar face, anyone who might give me clarity in this moment of chaos. A child's laughter echoed from across the field, a sound so pure that it seemed to mock my apprehension. I considered pulling away, running back to the safety of my home, where the comfort of my son awaited. But deep down, I knew I couldn't. If this meeting held the answers I sought, I couldn't turn my back. Just then, a figure emerged from behind a tree, a girl, perhaps 12 years old, with brown curls bouncing as she approached. Her face looked familiar, but the uncertainty gnawed at me. She stopped a few feet away, uncertainty flickering in her gaze. Are you Jameis, Mom?" Her voice was timid, a whisper rough around the edges, like she was afraid of my answer. "Yes, I am," I replied, trying to mask the mounting concern I felt. "And you are, Lily?" "I'm in Jameis' class." She looked around nervously, as though the shadows harbored secrets of their own. "I wanted to talk to you because, well, I saw what happened at school. I know he didn't get invited to the trip. And I wanted to help. My breath hitched. How could you help? Lily's eyes darted back to the playground, her fingers twisting nervously in her hair. I know things. About the other kids, about what they say. They were just afraid to include him because they thought he wouldn't fit in. She paused, tears shining in her eyes, threatening to spill. But he's not like that. He's nice, and he plays different games, and I really like him. I struggled to process her words. Could it be so simple? A misunderstanding cloaked in fear? But then the bitterness rose like bile in my throat. They excluded him, Lily. It wasn't just fear, it was exclusion. I can't let that happen again. I understand, she whispered, her voice steadying as she looked me in the eyes. But I want to help change it. Maybe if we can show them how amazing he is. Maybe we can get everyone together to play something fun. Her suggestion lingered in the air, a feeble beam of hope against the storm brewing within me. I wanted to believe that young hearts could be swayed, that cruelty could be undone with a leap of kindness. But the adult in me, jaded by resentment, struggled to embrace this naive optimism. Before I could respond, Lily stepped forward, lowering her voice. I heard rumors about another trip happening soon. I think we can find a way for James to be part of it. I want him to know he's not alone. Just as a sense of warmth began to unfurl within me, her words abruptly hit a snag as she continued, but we have to be careful. Some of the kids are mean, and if they find out I'm helping, they might turn on you and James. The very children I loathed, the ones who wrapped their words in poison, were still looming over this fragile plan. My heart sank into a pit of uncertainty. Would it even matter? What if my son were to face the ridicule again, this time fueled by hope? At that moment, the evening air grew thick, and fear snaked around us as distant laughter floated through the trees. I looked at Lily, this small warrior against injustice, and my heart twisted inside me. Would I betray that bravery by letting my son be vulnerable again? Okay, I found myself saying, an unexpected blend of anxiety and defiance swirling in my chest. Let's try. But I can't just let them hurt him. We have to prepare. Lily's face brightened, yet she quickly recalled the weight of the world. I will help. We can come up with a plan. But as relief washed over me, a beep from my phone interrupted the moment. I pulled it out, my heart leaping as I saw a text from my best friend, adding a jolt of confusion and dread. You need to see this. It's about the trip. And it's not good. The suffocating truth loomed ahead, uncertainty spinning wildly in my gut. Could I really trust Lily? And more importantly, what had I just stepped into? The seconds stretched painfully as I absorbed the text on my screen, each word feeling like a heavy weight pressing down on me. You need to see this. It's about the trip. And it's not good. I tried to breathe, but the air felt thick, constricting around my throat. Lily noticed my change in demeanor, her once bright expression dimming. What is it? Is it about James? I hesitated, the phone vibrating in my hand as if it were alive, ready to spill the venom it contained. It might be, I managed, words barely escaping my lips. But I need to see it first. I turned slightly, slipping to the edge of the park path, my heart racing as I opened the message fully. My heart sank further with every line I read. Rumors were swirling, accusations that the trip itself was a hoax, a game played by the cool kids to exclude more than just my son. It seemed that someone had caught wind of the other planned excursion and was fueling a toxic fire of gossip, and somehow my child's name was right in the center of it. What does it say? Lily pressed, stepping closer. It says it suggests that they're planning to have fun just for themselves, and that if anyone goes who isn't normal, they'll make sure it's a disaster. My voice was shaky, the crushing realization forcing my stomach to twist. Her eyes widened in horror. But that's not right. We can't let that happen. Easy for you to say, I snapped, an unexpected wave of bitterness flaring within me. You're not the one who has to watch your son get hurt over and over again. As soon as the words escaped, regret washed over me. Lily didn't deserve my anger, she was trying to help. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I interrupted before she could finish. Let's focus, I said, collecting my thoughts. We need to prepare, Lily. What do we do? Lily's shoulders straightened, and for a moment, the conviction in her gaze mirrored my own childhood beliefs in friendship and loyalty. We can talk to the teacher, Ms. Morris. If she knows about the rumor, maybe she can change it or at least warn the kids not to be mean. Maybe, I replied hesitantly, but my heart thudded with a fresh sense of urgency. But we have to be careful. If we confront them and it backfires, it could hurt him even more. No. She exclaimed, surprising me with the fire in her tone. That's why we need to act fast. We can tell her it's unfair before any of the kids make fun of him or come up with some awful idea. She took a step closer, her determination palpable, but so was her fear. I can help. I know how to talk to Ms. Morris. She listens to me. My heart ached at the thought of unleashing this whirlwind of chaos, but what choice did I have? Each second solidified my resolve to protect James, to demand that courage clashed with cruelty. As we turned to head toward the school, a movement caught the corner of my eye. A group of children. I realized, they weren't just children, they were the very kids who had excluded James, their chatter blending with the songs of the wind. I veiled my heart within a tough exterior as they passed. No one will ever like you, I heard one of them taunt. A shiver cascaded down my spine at the word, so many echoes of my own childhood trauma layered within that simple sentence. They moved past us, laughter spilling from their lips while my resolve simmered, threatening to boil over. Just ignore them, I whispered to Lily, who had paused, her expression hardening as she prepared to speak out. But I gripped her wrist gently. Not yet. We can handle this on our own. Both of us marched onward, urgency spurring our steps. Keep your head high, I told her, a smile forming despite my fear. We found ourselves standing before the school entrance, as the sun surrendered to twilight. A flicker of hope ignited within me. The very weight of our purpose felt different against the fragile backdrop of rising stars, but as we approached Ms. Morris' classroom, my phone buzzed again, this time more insistent than before. The dread coiled tightly within my gut as I pulled it out. The message was from my best friend again, and it read simply, "Be careful. There's more at stake than you realize." The chilling sense of urgency coursing through my veins nearly stole my breath away. I looked at Lily, her innocent confidence juxtaposed against my swirling distress. Did I truly have it in me to risk their wrath for a chance at saving my son? And deeper still, what unspeakable truth loomed over me, ready to unravel in these next moments? The weight of destiny lay heavily on my shoulders as I stood before the door to uncharted territory. I felt exposed, ready to leap into something uncertain, knowing I held not just my son's heart in my hands but perhaps my own fate too. But as choice loomed before me, I knew I had to act. Would I strike out against the darkness that sought to envelop my son, risking everything? Or would I stand still, trapped in fear, watching the shadows close in? A second passed, and as I grasped Lily's hand tightly, I realized the answer might not rest solely within me or James. We were all entwined, the stakes far greater than I had ever imagined. As I breathed in the fading light, a chill settled over the air, making my next steps feel heavier with the weight of impending decisions. Lily looked up at me, her brows furrowed, sensing the tension thrumming between us. "Are we ready?" she asked, her voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling around us. I nodded, though inside I felt a tempest raging. The doorway to Ms. Morris' classroom stood before us, a bastion of supposed safety, attempting to quiet the storm that raged in my heart. If we were to enact change, it had to begin here. But how could we ensure it wouldn't backfire, igniting more suffering for James? Memories of my own childhood flooded back, the opinions of the cool kids echoing in my ears, whispering messages that feared difference like a virus. I couldn't let that fate be James's. Gritting my teeth against the swell of dread, I pushed open the door and stepped into the brightly lit classroom. Ms. Morris was at her desk, her face alight with the warmth of the afternoon sun streaming through the windows. "Oh, Lily. I was just about to search for you," she said, her voice threading with kindness. "And you must be James' mother? How lovely to finally meet you." That tone felt good, a balm against the jagged edges of anxiety momentarily. Ms. Morris, I began, the words catching in my throat. We need to talk about the upcoming trip. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the back of the room. A boy named Derek, one of the instigators from earlier, had purposely bumped into another student. My stomach twisted as I felt the tension crackle through the air. He threw a taunting glance toward us, a smirk plastered across his face. Those cruel eyes were a mirror of shadows I had fought my entire life. Before I could gather my thoughts to address Ms. Morris, Lily stepped forward. It's about the trip. People are saying they're just rumors, Derek interjected, his voice cutting in with confidence. He turned to Ms. Morris, that same familiar arrogance shining through. We all know that not everyone belongs in our group. It's just how things work. My breath caught in the back of my throat. I knew that Derek was manipulating the moment, twisting it until it fit his narrative. But it wasn't just my son he was targeting, it was every child who felt the weight of exclusion. Would I remain silent? Suddenly, a small voice piped up from the other end of the room. I think everyone should get a chance, said Timothy, a shy boy who often blended into the background. His gaze flicked nervously between Ms. Morris and Derek. Maybe it could be fun if we all went. The courageous stand of that single voice sent a flicker of hope through me, igniting a spark that I hadn't realized was dimming. It resonated within the turmoil, reminding me of the importance of solidarity against cruelty. With a newfound strength, I took a step closer. Timothy is right, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Everyone deserves a chance, Derek, even if they're different. What are you trying to say? Derek sneered, looking at me with contempt, and I could see the gears turning in his mind, plotting his next jab. The other students were looking on though, and for once, I felt the balance of power shift as they turned their attention to him. He's saying you should keep your mouth shut. Lily chimed, the fire in her words catching me by surprise. My heart swelled with pride as I saw how fiercely she defended not just James, but all the kids who would feel the sting of exclusion, but Derek's smirk only widened. Why should I care what you think? You're nobody, just like that kid. He pointed toward Timothy, whose face flushed with embarrassment. And your mom isn't even cool enough to get it. I felt my heart drop, a wave of helplessness crashing over me as Derek dismissed us with his words. Anger bubbled beneath the surface. I wanted to protect Timothy as fiercely as I wanted to guard James. But the moment was slipping from my grasp, fraying at the edges like an unraveling thread. Enough! Ms. Morris exploded, rising from her seat, eyes ablaze with authority. This is unacceptable behavior. If I see or hear any more of this nonsense, I will involve the principal. We are here to foster a sense of community, not division. The shift in the atmosphere was palpable, a faint glimmer of hope sparkling through the apprehension. But the weight of Derek's glare was unyielding as he leaned closer, whispering something that sent a shudder down my spine. You'll regret standing up for him, he said low enough that only I could hear. Just wait, I swallowed hard, the fear settling like a stone. What had I unleashed? I took a breath, bolstered by the realization that as much as I wanted to shield James from harm, the act of speaking up might very well draw the fire toward me. But in that moment, I glanced again at Timothy, smaller, softer, yet ignited with his own brave light, and I vowed not to back down. As I turned to leave Ms. Morris's classroom alongside Lily, my phone buzzed yet again, a stark jolt against the rising tide of camaraderie. It was a message, and as I glanced down, my heart plummeted. You're not ready for what comes next, it read, sending a chill through me. I hesitated for a moment, my mind screaming to put the phone away, but the looming threat hung over me like a storm cloud. I looked at Lily, who watched me with concern. Uncertainty filled her soft gaze, reflecting my own fears back at me. What awaited us in the shadows? And would we have the strength to face whatever lay beyond? As we stepped out of that classroom, the horizon darkened with the encroaching night, and I understood that we might be on the precipice of something much larger than a simple trip. Perhaps deeper truths were about to emerge, truths that could fracture everything I thought I knew. As the door swung shut behind us, the fading clamor of voices behind it felt like a distant echo, swallowed by the heavy silence that lingered in the hallway. My heart raced, a tirade of doubts creeping in. Had I done the right thing by confronting Derek? My mind scorched with his words, a persistent reminder of the grueling legacy of bullying that spanned years, one I had thought I escaped. Lily's hand squeezed mine, her grip sturdy, yet I could sense the storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. What did he mean by that? She finally asked, her voice tight with worry. I shook my head, feeling the pulse of uncertainty. I don't know, sweetheart. But we need to stay strong, okay? For James, I murmured, though the quiver in my voice betrayed my conviction. How could I ask her to carry our burdens when I was barely holding my own? As we stepped outside, the chill of the evening air wrapped around us like a shroud. I noticed a few parents standing in clusters, their laughter mingling with the fading light. It felt inherently unfair, their ease mocking the turmoil that churned inside me. Lily's head hung low, and I knew she shared the weight of it all, the incessant knot of frustration for James and the inexplicable hatred Derek seemed so eager to spill. Let's go home, I said, though my voice felt hollow, even to me. The promise of comfort that awaited us was fragile, teetering on the edge of uncertainty. Mom, she piped up, halting our steps. What if we talked to Ms. Morris again? Maybe she can, sweetheart. I don't know if there's much more we can do right now, I replied too quickly, a defensive edge creeping into my tone. The last thing I wanted was for her to feel responsible for this mess, yet deep down, I felt that flicker of hope ignite again. Could Ms. Morris truly be an ally for us? Just as we were about to cross the street, I caught sight of a figure in the distance walking towards us. It was Timothy, his head bobbing nervously as he approached, shuffling his feet against the pavement like he was unsure of his own purpose. My heart ached for him. He was courage personified despite carrying an aura of vulnerability. Hi, Lily? He stuttered, looking from her to me. I wanted to say that I think you both were really brave. I mean, no one else stood up to Derek. His cheeks flushed pink, revealing just how deeply that act of courage cut through his own fears. Lily's eyes widened, surprise replacing the concern, and she smiled gently. Thanks, Timothy. That means a lot. Then he turned to me, his expression earnest. And Mrs. Evans, too, think James should go on the trip. He deserves it just like everyone else. I can talk to Ms. Morris too. I know she would listen. She really cares. The soft glow of his words lifted the weight momentarily, flooding me with warmth. That's very kind of you, Timothy. It would really help, I replied, grateful for his sentiment. Perhaps my child wasn't the only one deserving of a voice. As we exchanged numbers and promised to keep in touch, hope glimmered in the shadow of the impending darkness. Maybe change was possible, however small. Lily beamed, her faith in the goodness of others momentarily restored. Yet, just as I began to breathe again, the darkness crept back with its heavy hand, nudging me to acknowledge the swell of ominous feelings. What if Derek retaliated? And what if I wasn't there to help James when he needed me most? Gripping the strap of my bag, I pushed the nagging dread aside. Let's get home, I urged, steering Lily and Timothy towards the car. Their laughter, light and innocent, chased away the encroaching shadows, but once we were home, nestled into the placid hum of evening routines, the weight of dread returned, relentless. The phone buzzed again, pulling me from the mundane kitchen chatter. A message from an unknown number flashed across the screen. You'll regret this. Keep your son away from the trip. You don't know what you're inviting. A chill gripped my spine as I read the message, a sense of foreboding settling over me like a dark cloud. I clenched my phone, dread pooling in the pit of my stomach. This wasn't a mere threat, it was a warning, a harbinger of something wicked, lurking just beyond our doorstep. I looked over at Lily, playing carefree in the living room, blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing in the shadows. How far would this go? What depths of grief and vengeance had I unknowingly opened up? In my gut, a gnawing realization was taking form, the pieces slowly aligning into a revelation darker than I was prepared to face. There was more at stake here than just a school trip, it was a battle for courage, A fight against a tide that sought to drown not just my son but every child like him. And in this fight, I might have unleashed forces I couldn't contain. As the night thickened and shadows grew deeper, uncertainty swirled. A promise of confrontation was brewing on the horizon. The enemy was closer than I had feared, and the heart-wrenching journey of vengeance had just begun. It wouldn't be long before everything changed. The next morning came with a muted dawn, the sunlight breaking through the blinds with an uninvited sharpness I found difficult to endure. I had hardly slept, haunted by the gravitas of that message, the warning echoing like an ill omen. I stared blearily at the breakfast table, trying to muster the energy to pretend everything was normal. Lily sat across from me, her hair tousled, eyes still sleep-fogged, yet there was a resolute cheerfulness to her that tugged at my heartstrings. "Can we talk to Timothy today?" she asked between bites of toast, already planning how to tackle the day with innocent optimism. I nodded, smiling weakly, but inside, a storm brewed. How naive I was. What would I even say to Timothy? "Thank you for standing up for us, but now we're in deeper trouble than I ever anticipated?" It felt disingenuous. Lily deserved a life untouched by these complexities, but the truth loomed, a lingering shadow that wouldn't leave us be. Just as I was about to suggest we take a walk to clear our heads, my phone vibrated again, this time with a message from an unknown account. "You should talk to Ms. Morris, she knows the truth." The pulse of fear thrummed in my veins. Who was sending these threats? What did they want? Each text was like a new stab of dread, piercing through the fragile hope built just yesterday. "Mom? Are you okay?" Lily's voice broke through my mental haze, her brow furrowed in concern. I plastered on a smile, willing the dark thoughts away. "Just a little tired, sweetheart. Want to go for a walk? We can see if Timothy's around." We set out, winding our way through the quiet neighborhood where echoes of childhood laughter occasionally bubbled to the surface, yet the innocence surrounding us felt like a facade masking the truth lurking behind every corner. Timothy was out with his family, his younger sister chasing Bubbles across the yard. Watching them play sparked a pang of longing in me for innocence, for days when worries were trivial. I wanted to take a photograph of them, to capture a snapshot of the unguarded joy, but I couldn't. Instead, I found myself drifting toward the imposing shape of a nearby park, the trees swaying, reminding me of the unseen battles being waged. Once there, I attempted to focus on Lily, who was darting across the grass, her laughter unfurling in the way I remembered from her earliest years, but my heart still thudded with anxiety. There was something encroaching on our safe space, a malevolent force that threatened everything I held dear. Lily took a break, collapsing on the grass next to me. "Mom, I wish we could just make things right for James. Why does Derek hate him so much?" I shifted uncomfortably, unsure how to rally my emotions into words that would fit that moment. "Sometimes, other people's actions are more about themselves than the person they're targeting," I replied thoughtfully, hoping my attempt to explain might be another push towards understanding, not just for her but for me too. She stared up at the kaleidoscope of leaves trembling in the breeze. "But he didn't do anything wrong." "No, he didn't. People who hurt others often act out of their own pain." I closed my eyes, battling against the sting of tears. If Derek was lashing out, it was because of his unaddressed storms. I wanted to shield my children from that storm, to circle the wagons against a bad world, but what if shielding them meant leaving them unprepared? Suddenly, a shrill voice cut through the air, jarring me from my reverie. "There they are." It was a group of older kids from school, and, not surprisingly, Derek among them. The laughter was sharp, filled with malice as they headed toward a cluster of benches, their eyes narrowing on us. Instincts kicked in, urging Lily and me to retreat, but there was nowhere to hide from their judgmental stares. Derek strutted a few steps ahead, looking angrier than I had seen him before. "What are you doing here? Still hoping for a miracle for your freak of a brother?" He sneered, the taunt like a dagger. Lily pressed her fingers into my thigh, squeezing tightly. "Let's go, Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling, and then something snapped within me. I felt the weight of the past pressing heavily on my chest, pushing me past my protective instincts. I turned to face Derek, confronting him with a bravery I didn't know I possessed. "You have no idea what you're talking about," I said, my voice steady despite the tumult throbbing in my heart. Derek's laughter was cruel. "You think this is going to change anything? You think you can just have your little talks with Ms. Morris and everything will be fine? Well, take care of your son," he sneered before beckoning his friends. "This isn't over." Before I could reply, they sauntered off, their laughter fading into the distance, but the damage was done. Gripping Lily's hand tightly as we walked away, I felt a fiery determination igniting in my chest. I couldn't allow fear to overshadow my fierce love for James. I would fight back, but how? How far was I willing to go? That evening, the uncertainty hung thicker than the humid air. What had I set in motion? Perhaps confronting Derek had only fanned the flames, an unplanned rebellion against the very forces I sought to protect my family from. With a coldness creeping back into my bones, I realized this was just the calm before the storm. The message had been clear. The fight had begun, not just as a battle for my son but as a challenge to turn my fear into fierce love, a love powerful enough to forge a path through this tumult. But as I settled into bed that night, fatigue weighted me down, only to be shattered by another incoming message. As I reluctantly glanced at the screen, my breath caught. "Prepare for what's coming. You have no idea the chaos you've invited." The fight loomed ahead like a tempest beyond comprehension, and I could no longer merely stand by. The world felt heavier the next morning, my mind still reeling from the ominous message that had greeted my restless sleep. Sunlight seeped through the curtains, yet it brought none of the warmth I so desperately craved. I rolled out of bed, knowing all too well the delicate balance I had to maintain for Lily and James. They were counting on me to be the anchor in a storm I was still trying to understand. As I prepared breakfast, my thoughts clashed violently with the echoes of Derek's taunts. I couldn't shake the feeling of inevitability weighing on me. Something was brewing, and whether I wanted it or not, I was at the center of it. When Lily entered the kitchen, her cheerful spirit seemed out of place against the backdrop of my internal struggle. "Good morning, Mom," she chirped, her face bright with the timid hope that perhaps today would be a little brighter, a little easier. I forced a smile in return. "Good morning, sweetheart. How about we make some pancakes together?" Her eyes sparkled, and together we cracked eggs and mixed the batter, the kitchen quickly filling with the aroma of sweet indulgence. As she hummed a familiar tune, I couldn't help but admire her innocence, a stark contrast to the turmoil lapping at our door like a rising tide. I wished to shield her from all of it, the pain and the darkness that could seep through even the smallest cracks in our joy. Once breakfast was done, I resolved that we needed to talk more about James. With a sense of purpose, I set our paths toward Timothy's house, hoping that he would have insights that could aid our journey. Placing one foot in front of the other, the cadence of life tried to return to normalcy, yet the remnants of despair clung like an unwelcome shadow. Timothy's mom welcomed us inside with a warm smile, an inviting embrace that felt unfamiliar but comforting. "You both look lovely. Timothy is just upstairs." As Lily dashed towards Timothy's room, I lingered just a moment longer, gathering my words like fragile bones before having to face the storm once again. I had never intended for this visit to feel like a confrontation, yet here it was, looming like a thunderhead ready to unleash its fury. Upstairs, Timothy and Lily were deep in animated conversation, but the moment I entered the room, a palpable tension descended. "Hey, Mr. Fairfield," Timothy called, though his enthusiasm felt restrained by underlying currents of worry. "Timothy," I began, trying to keep my tone even, "I need you to be honest with me. What more do you know about Derek and what he's been saying about James?" Timothy's expression darkened. "I don't understand why he hates James. He started this whole thing after James stood up to him. It's like he can't stand that someone might not let him bully them." I could see the frustration in Timothy's eyes, and the weight of concern etched lines across his young face. "But it's worse now, isn't it? It's not just words anymore. He's stirred up something that could hurt all of us." Before I could respond, Lily interjected, "Is he going to try and hurt James again?" "We can't let that happen." Her voice quivered, a mixture of fear and determination that sent a fresh wave of anger coursing through me. This wasn't purely about self-defense anymore, it had transformed into a quest for justice. There's more, isn't there? I pressed, fixing my gaze on Timothy. You mentioned Ms. Morris. What does she know? Timothy frowned, deep in thought. She used to be a teacher for Derek. He never liked her much, and when she left, things got darker for some of us. There are stories she knows. I think she's been warning people, but I don't know what she can do now. My heart sank. What stories, Timothy? About parties, about kids who are planning something big that involves James. She's scared for him. I think you need to talk to her. Lily squeezed my hand. Everything was shifting, the world around us turning into a dangerous game of chess I was unprepared to play. The frustration pulsated through me, but underneath that simmering anger lay an ember of determination igniting within. With a heavy heart, I assured Timothy we would seek out Ms. Morris. Yielding myself to the chaos felt somewhat wrong, yet I had to navigate this storm for Lily and James. The fear of inaction grew unbearable. As I glanced down at Lily, I saw her brave facade flicker. Can I come too? I want to help, Mom. That simple request ignited a new layer of complexity. I wanted to shield her from this nightmare, yet at the same time, her tenacity was a mirror reflecting both my hope and fear. Yes, sweetheart. But promise me you'll stay by my side. As we prepared to leave, the sky shifted. An ominous stir of clouds rolled in as if nature itself understood our battle was imminent. I clutched Lily's hand, her warmth a balm against the cold fear threatening to envelop me whole. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again as we stepped outside. The message chilled me to the bone. It's too late to protect him. You'll regret ever standing up for your son. I glanced at Lily, her innocent gaze unaware of the storm brewing off in the distance while every shred of my resolve hardened into steel. However, deep down, I now feared more than just confrontation. It felt like the very foundations of our lives were crumbling. What destruction lay ahead? With uncertainty fueling my drive, I turned toward the school, where Ms. Morris awaited. Every step felt like I was walking deeper into a labyrinth, a challenge born from love and some underlying, terrifying fate that I would soon come to understand fully. I couldn't shake the sense that the shadows were closing in, that whatever lay ahead might change everything forever. As we approached the school gates, the weight of inevitability pulled at my heart, a deep orifice of dread unfurling within me. What if it was too late? What if our fight only invited more chaos, more heartbreak? I inhaled sharply, ready to confront whatever lay ahead, whatever taunts and turmoil would spill forth. Life was about to change, and I knew I would either rise to protect my family or watch helplessly as everything I loved burned to ash. The hallways of the school felt like a labyrinth of anxiety, a maze where shadows whispered fears that cut deeper than the cruelty of children's words. As Lily and I walked through the double doors, I felt the cacophony of laughter and chatter collide with the thundering pulse of my heart. Each bright smile that flitted by belied the darkness that loomed ahead. Where do we find Ms. Morris? Lily asked, her small hand gripping mine tightly, a lifeline in a sea of uncertainty. Let's check the English department first. She's usually in her classroom, but she might be meeting with someone, I replied, trying to project calmness I didn't feel. As we walked down the corridor lined with colorful artwork and motivational posters, a group of students passed us, their whispers coiling around us like tendrils of smoke. I recognized Derek's gang among them, eyes filled with malevolence, laughter tinged with malice. I wanted to shield Lily from their reach, to whisk her away, but the defiance in her grip reminded me of her unwavering spirit. Just then, I caught a glimpse of Derek. He stood at the edge of the hallway, leaning against a locker, his smirk sending a chill down my spine. For a brief moment, our eyes locked, and the taunting glint in his gaze was a shot of ice straight to my core. It was more than just misguided bravado, it was hatred, festering and unapologetic. Don't look at him, Lily, I whispered, hoping to guide her focus away from the danger that lurked, but Lily didn't waver. Instead, she tugged my hand towards him. Mom, we have to stand up to bullies. It's not right. Her fierce determination stirred something deep within me, a combination of pride and dread. I wanted to protect her from this world, yet her courage brought a flicker of hope. Maybe this wasn't just our fight. Yes, but there's a time and place, sweetheart. Right now, we need to talk to Ms. Morris about something important. Just then, a teacher with kind eyes, Ms. Tomlin, appeared. She was the embodiment of warmth, a gentle soul who always greeted students like they mattered. Angela. Is everything all right? I hesitated, the weight of Derek and his gang still looming at the edge of my vision. But something in Ms. Tomlin's expression invited vulnerability. I'm looking for Ms. Morris. It's about my son, James. He's in trouble. Trouble? How can I help? She asked gently. Her concern felt like a hug encasing my anxiety. Before I could respond, the door to the English room opened, and Ms. Morris stepped out, her expression morphing from surprise to concern as she saw me. Angela. You're here, she said, her voice carrying the weight of unspoken understanding. Yes, we need to talk, I replied, my voice edged with urgency as I motioned for Lily to stay close. The air in the hallway shifted, tension thickening into an undeniable presence. I led us into Ms. Morris' classroom, a sanctuary filled with books and the smell of freshly sharpened pencils. The walls held snippets of poetry, reminders of passion battling against the harsh realities outside. Sit down, both of you, Ms. Morris offered softly. As we nestled into the chairs, I could sense the walls closing in, cradling us in this moment of shared fear. The things I've heard, she began, shaking her head. Derek has become a catalyst for chaos. I didn't want to believe he would take it this far, but he's rallied others. After the incident at recess, kids are whispering of things that might happen. I'm scared for James. You'll need to be cautious, Lily frowned, her eyes wide with confusion. What do you mean? Is James in danger? It's more than just physical danger, Lily, I cut in gently, holding her gaze. It's about the psychological games that can hurt just as deeply. What kind of games? She leaned forward, her innocence colliding with the harsh reality I wished to shield her from. Ms. Morris took a deep breath, looking back to me for confirmation before she continued. Derek is using social media to incite others. There are rumors of a trip that people are planning, something he's plotting that could endanger everyone's safety if we don't act now. My fingers tightened around Lily's small hand, the cold terror pooling in my stomach. What kind of trip? I asked, dread creeping into my voice. A party, is what he's calling it, a gathering where he plans to humiliate anyone who stands against him and boost his own sick sense of power. He's targeting James specifically because of the stand he took, Ms. Morris replied, her gaze resolute, though her voice trembled slightly. I felt my body freeze, a mix of vengeance and despair washing over me. Could we protect James from this? More importantly, what were we willing to do to stop it? Lily's voice shattered my thoughts. We have to warn him. We can't let him be alone. Yes, but my response faltered, caught between the desire to take immediate action and the awareness that rushing might only worsen the threat. As if sensing my turmoil, Ms. Morris leaned forward, her brow creased with concern. There's something we can do. We need to find allies. Others who care about James, who can rally together against Derek. You're right, we can't let fear rule us, I nodded, the small flicker of hope igniting in my chest. But that spark dimmed as quickly as it came when I recalled the message Derek had sent, echoing cruel predictions of regret. Would this be the moment where action cost us dearly? Are you with me? I asked, the question extending beyond our immediate circle. It rang back in my heart, seeking to transcend the fear that threatened to paralyze us. Before I could answer, the classroom doors swung open, revealing a group of students, all familiar faces. Among them was Timothy, and as his eyes met mine, I saw the reflection of shared determination. There were others I recognized who hadn't been among Derek's crew, kids who understood the depth of cruelty. The weight of the moment pressed down on me, a world of chaos swirling around us. Yes, I'm with you, I finally breathed, a vow made to myself, to James, to Lily. But just then, a chilling sound rippled through the air, a loud crash from outside. A collective gasp erupted through the room, as Lily's eyes widened. "What was that? Let's see," Timothy said, taking the lead, and we all rushed toward the window. As I peered outside, dread coiled in my gut. Derek and his gang were gathered around the playground, chaos unfolding as they surrounded James, who had just stepped out of the school, blissfully unaware of the storm gathering. In that moment, the echo of fear bloomed into a realization that time was slipping like sand through my fingers, fueling fury that coursed through my veins. They had crossed a line, and the scene unfolding before me made it abundantly clear this was just the beginning of their cruel games. "Stop it!" Lily shouted, her small voice resolute in the face of chaos. And just like that, I felt the world pivot. Every ounce of protection I wanted to give was eclipsed by the truth. I had to act now. But as I turned to rush for the door, Derek's triumphant laughter rang in my ears, and I could only wonder if this moment would lead to healing or heartbreak. The endgame was upon us, but the answers I'd sought lay buried within the storm, and I could only hope I'd unearthed them before it was too late. The air was stifling as I burst through the school doors, adrenaline sharpening my senses, my heart racing at the scene unfolding in front of me. Derek and his crew had encircled my son like predators, their laughter slicing through the atmosphere. Each chuckle felt like a blade, threatening to underline the very pain I had fought to shield James from. "Get away from him!" I shouted, my voice breaking through the chaos, an unexpected force of protectiveness surging. I saw James flinch, confusion and hurt flashing across his face as he glanced at me, and that sight ignited a firestorm within me. "Mom!" he called, relief battling with anxiety in his voice. Derek turned, his confidence faltering for a moment as he took in my determined stride, the ferocity in my gaze. The other kids were sneering, their faces twisted in mocking disbelief as I advanced. "You think we're afraid of you?" Derek spat, attempting to regain control of the moment even as I felt the balance shift. "James," I said, keeping my eyes locked on Derek, pushing my voice to carry over the tension, "step back. I'm here." The visceral need to protect my son overrode any remnants of doubt. It was time to confront the terror that had lurked behind closed doors, the whispered judgments, the cruelty veiled in laughter. "Why don't you just let him go?" I demanded, voice steady, refusing to buckle under the weight of their malice. My gaze flicked to Derek. "He's done nothing wrong. If you think this makes you powerful, it makes you weak." Derek's expression contorted into anger, but the fire in his eyes faltered a notch, as glances amongst his friends began to shift, hesitation collecting in their bravado. I had called their bluff. As if summoned by my words, Timothy and Lily reappeared at my side, their faces fierce. "We won't let you hurt him," Timothy declared, standing tall, voice ringing with conviction. "You're just a bunch of losers," Derek shot back, but this time, it didn't carry the same weight, the crack in his facade growing larger. "Maybe we're losers," Lily piped in, her voice quiet but filled with unyielding strength. "But we're together. You all just act like bullies because you're scared." Her words were a dagger, sharp enough to bend their twisted truths back on themselves. In that moment, a shift swept across the crowd of onlookers' faces. Once riveted in fascination now wore expressions of confusion, uncertainty in the face of unity they hadn't anticipated. "Back off," I reiterated, stepping closer, shielding James, determination clawing for strength within me. I knew, somehow, that if we stood firm together, these shadows could be pushed back into the darkness. A tension hung thick in the air like the moment before a storm unleashes its fury, electric and raw. And with that crackling energy, I felt unity blossom around us, the courage of others sparking a chain reaction. "Leave James alone," came another voice, one I didn't recognize. A classmate, emboldened, surged forward. Then another joined. As the chorus of defiance swelled, Derek faltered. The intensity of collective bravery swarmed him, stripping away the power he wielded. "Stop it!" he yelled, panic creeping into his tone, but it was too late. His throne of cruelty had begun to crumble. And then, as swiftly as it had gathered, the moment dissipated. The other kids started to turn away, whispers leaving Derek and his followers isolated. A fragile sense of victory spread among us, a flicker of hope fighting against the darkness, but I wasn't done. I stepped closer to Derek, whose angry facade had begun to crack completely. This stops now, Derek. No more threats. No more games. You are responsible for your actions, and we will make sure everyone knows the consequences of bullying. Tension lined his jaw, a mix of fury and embarrassment as realization sunk in. This wasn't how it was supposed to go together. We had turned the tide against him, and now the power dynamic shifted irrevocably. "Let's go," he grumbled, spinning on his heel and storming away, his followers trailing behind like lost shadows, the thrill of control stolen from them. As they retreated, I let the breath I hadn't realized I was holding escape, the enormity of what had transpired settling heavily in the air. I turned to James, who stood wide-eyed, both frightened and amazed. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. You were brave." "But, Mom, I know," I interrupted softly, my heart swelling with pride. "But you don't have to be afraid anymore." Just then, the sound of applause broke out behind USA gathering of students and others watching from a distance. They were clapping, acknowledging the shift, their voices vibrating with solidarity. "James, we've got your back," someone shouted, and another chimed in, "You're not alone." Joy erupted, laughter filling the spaces once choked by fear. I watched, tears blurring my vision, as James' shoulders slumped with relief. Hope began to take root in his heart as the community of kids rallied around him, this beautiful tapestry of connection that overshadowed the darkness. And then the most unexpected thing happened. Derek reappeared, glaring from the sidelines, but there was something different about him. Defiance flickered in his eyes, yet uncertainty started to take hold. "Just wait," he hissed, but the spark of confidence in his voice was already wavering under the collective strength of the kids standing together against him. "Maybe Derek just needs a friend," one of the kids suggested, hesitantly yet earnestly. "After all, we're all just kids." A murmur of thought swirled around, and I felt my heart ache for the layers of hurt buried deep within him. This was a complex battle for every child involved, tearing down preconceived notions of who belonged and who didn't. It was a battle against the shadows cast by fear, misunderstanding, or insecurity. "Okay, maybe he just needs some help," I echoed, my voice carrying over the group, challenging Derek while holding out an olive branch. "But bullying isn't the way. What about instead of pushing each other away, we learn from each other? Maybe Derek could try playing a game with James." The collective murmurs quieted, their eyes darting between Derek and James. Uncertainty loomed, but within it lay the possibility of a sloppy, awkward attempt at connection where kindness might just envelop fear. "Fine," Derek muttered, shifting uncomfortably. "Whatever." And there, at the precipice of healing, my heart swelled in ways that embraced the irony of it all. A battle fought not just for my son, but against the walls that divided every child. This was about collective strength, about laying down arms for a more profound purpose. James' eyes widened, surprise dancing across his features as he turned to me. He still wore the fresh bruises of hurt but was cradled now in the impression of unity around him, a sense that love and companionship could reshape the narrative in ways we couldn't see coming. That as they began to talk, the shadows of conflict fading like wisps of smoke, I felt the edges of my heart soften. Life was messy, but in that moment, hope blossomed anew. And as I stood there in the schoolyard, surrounded by my son and a community finally finding its voice, I realized that sometimes the most powerful change begins at the core of ourselves, with the courage to reach out, to forgive even where it seems impossible. And so, amidst the laughter and tentative camaraderie, I turned to James, who looked up at me with questions still lingering in his gaze, and a realization struck me profound in its simplicity: would never have to face this alone. Again, together, I whispered softly to him, holding his gaze steady, we'll always fight for each other. And in that moment, I understood the meaning of resilience, a bond forged beyond the dark nights we had endured, ready to soar toward the light that awaited us. The heart always finds its way back, and I couldn't help but smile as the night wrapped us in its embrace. Because in love, we can create a world, not just endure it.